introduce the team. So, as you all know, I'm Juice. I'm brother. I go by multiple names. But we also have Marks here. Marks, do you want to give everyone an introduction to who you are?
All right. Hello, guys. I'm Marks. You might remember me. So I do almost everything in graphics. I'm kind of graphics lead. I do everything in 3D. Uh, every interior, exterior, buildings, plots, etc. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much for that introduction. Nikita, how about you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, my name is Nikita. I'm a manager for partnership relations. So if you have some questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much. Lyagushka?
Hello everyone, I'm Ivan and I'm kind of a product manager, so I manage everyone, almost everyone in here, what they are doing and so on.
Perfect. And of course, we've got the already famous Eugene in the house today. Eugene, you want to take a second?
Yeah, thanks, Juice. I'm Eugene, so I'm initially was taking care of product right now. Leading the product team, helping with storytelling, expansions too. Yeah, that's basically all about me.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And last but not least, who's speaking today, Father. Do you want to take a second to introduce yourself to anybody who somehow might not know who you are?
Yeah, hey guys, we're cool to see 193 people today already. I apologize in advance if there will be kind of noise behind me. So I'm responsible and work on strategy, growth, expansion, and ideas that can bring Mars colony to make it one of the biggest projects in the world. So that's my dream. Hey guys.
Yeah, he's already on Mars, hence connection is so bad then.
Yeah, that's pretty good tech that we've got connecting us to him today, but I'm just glad that you guys are all here. So just to kind of recap for anybody that might have missed it, if you have missed it, though, I think you might have been living under a rock. The big topic of conversation recently has been a recent announcement where we proposed the beginning of the shift to a play-to-earn model, and there's multiple ways that we can implement this, and the point of today's call is to kind of explore those routes, give everybody a chance to sort of have a little bit of representation, share some ideas. A lot of ideas are currently in the suggestions category, as well as other channels throughout the Discord, which I went through last night and caught up on all of them. And I will start by kind of prefacing that a lot of the ideas that I've noticed that have gained a little bit of traction are things that we have sort of already planned in stages. So I can kind of see that this call is going to be a lot of figuring out more of the details of each one of those suggestions and how they might look if we were to actually implement them, sort of do a little bit of a simulation here. So, but with that, why don't we does anybody on the team want to summarize sort of how we're figuring the play to earn model, any changes that we're thinking about making, and kind of catch everybody up as you're feeling it? Maybe Eugene, you want to handle this question. Basically, if somebody's wondering what is the future of Mars Colony and why are we thinking about play to earn changes? Why are we thinking about emissions changes? What might that look like? Maybe just give kind of a summary of what we're thinking.
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna give a quick overview, guys, and after that, just feel free to ask questions. I can just go deeper down into the details. So as you probably know, initially Mars Colony, we started with play-to-earn model, right? So you buy the land, then you purchase the upgrades, and that upgrades bring you colony. Essentially, it sounds like a passive income, which sounds cool, yes, but at the same time, it becomes boring, right? At some point in time, community will get bored of just collecting just colony, and there's going to be nothing to do with it, right? So there's a couple of like directions. We, of course, adding financial tools, stuff like that, but it's not something that will be long-term sustainable, right? So we need fresh blood. We need new users. We need you guys also kind of bored, and the next steps transitioning from like what we have right now to the next phase where we can actually bring more users, bring more players is enabling play to earn. And enabling play to earn is not something that, as we earlier mentioned, we just came up right now. It's something that we initially planned. So in initial application to Harmony, we mentioned that we are aiming to be play to earn, and that's where we wanted to be. So what is play to earn, right? In a nutshell, right? So play to earn is the ability for users to play games, play like missions, mini quests, and essentially earn rewards, right? Rewards could be upgrades to avatars. Rewards could be monetary rewards, which would be colony, right? And could be like other perks for such as like NFT stuff like that, right? So in a sense of, as you probably, some of you heard that we wanted to, I think like what's been shared that we wanted to just take like earnings from the passive income, transition it to the active. Idea here is that in order for the colony to sustain, in order for the colony to be more excited about what we do, what we build, is a great way here is to transition slowly, gradually, some part of the passive income towards active income. So what it means is like we're not taking the revenues from users who are actually making colony, but we rather moving passive earnings towards making quests. So before, for example, if you would, for some specific, let's say for specific items, you would have to go there, collect colony, and every day have a passive income. Right now, we will just go there and you will play, right? You will play a mission and you will basically earn, right? So that's kind of the kind of nutshell play to earn, right? So how we want to implement this, right? There's a lot of more details I can share, but maybe just before we jump into the details, how we're going to implement this, maybe community have questions or like anyone else wants something to add, because it's going to be a little bit more deeper discussion.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, good summary. Transition to play to earn. Not taking away income necessarily, just kind of reorganizing how you'll claim it. But we can explore the details and how we'll implement that. Yeah, with some questions. So I'm just going to go down the list of requests to speak in order. I know there are 200 of you and growing, so we might not get to everybody if everybody raises their hand. But if you do have questions or thoughts to share, hit that little hand button at the bottom. It's a request to speak button, and then I can let you up onto the stage where you can talk. So Stully, I've granted you access. All you have to do is accept it, and then you'll be able to come up on stage. Kickapoo, I'm going to let you up so you have time to come as well, but we're going to try to give Stully the first chance to speak. We'll give it a few seconds. If neither of them come up on stage, then we can also continue moving down the list. TNM, I'm also going to grant you access. If you make it up here before them, feel free to ask your question. Okay, you removed your request. AMD. And Crypto T. That's all the requests. You've all been granted access. There we go. How's it going, T?
Fantastic, buddy. Okay, firstly, let's deal with the issue at hand, right? The play to earn game that we're talking about. When I read the white paper and go over the stuff that we have in there, it is very clear that we were aiming for P2E. But nowhere in there did it say that we are replacing the passive income with P2E. It was always known and built and thought of and discussed in the forums, in everything, that this was in addition to the base passive play. And to be honest, all of our calculations, all of our return of investments in coming into Mars Colony had that as a base. In other words, we're looking for additional play to earn to come in. Certainly not the replacement of, right? Secondly, there's an income that might be derived from that, from the play to earn, and that is okay. It's okay in addition to that, but I don't really think that any of us were ever imagining that the passive income would disappear. The third point is many of us here have multiple lands. If we're doing a mission on that, how on earth would the logistics work in order for us to do that? I mean, are we thinking of a dashboard in which we can select 50 properties and say start simultaneous mission? Because it's going to be an impossible task to click on one land and start a mission, and then click on the second land and start a mission, etc. Right. And I think this is where we come into whether you own one land or multiple land. And I'm not going to get into the whole whale versus non-whale, which I think is a ridiculous argument. I'm just saying that if you have a major a contributor that has bought many lands, I mean, frankly, even if you have 20 lands, for somebody to go in there and click on each land and start a mission each day in order to then get that portion of his passive income as active income now, I think that's a big ask. That's my comments.
Thanks a lot. If you don't mind, I'll just start from the last question, like more about logistics first. Not just trying to avoid it, but I'm just something that I would just want to address right away, because like some of you I know that have more than like one land, and some of them have 50 land, some of them have 20 land. So how logistics is going to work is going to be mechanism. I mean, first of all, what we imagine, if you have, let's say, like say 10 lands, 20 lands, right? You probably don't want to do it every day, right? You're gonna get bored, like you don't want to play every day. So for that sense, we're making the idea and like creating the concept of guilds, where the guild's gonna be basically what you can do is you can create, if you have a lot of lands, you can create your own guild, and you can enable other players who have avatars but cannot afford land or don't want to buy land, go and play on your land, right? In that sense, you will be basically allowing anyone else to go play there, and they can just jump, like each player can play in different land, or they can play in multiple lands. For example, they finish playing on the first one, and they can just go back and just jump, to another one. So that can be handled, and we're gonna work on functionality to enable this. As for address to on the tangent of, as you mentioned, that on the documents they read, there was no notion that you will have to share income. So first of all, we are not saying like, okay, we take 50% of your income if you move into play to earn. What we're saying is like, we would like to test with a few, let's say, take percentage of passive income and enable in that percentage, enable the play to earn model, right? So in that play to earn model, let's say, let's imagine like you're making, let's say, 10 colony from land. From 2 colony that you're earning, we enabling for that 2 colony play to earn model. And what you do there, you decide, okay, you want to share 20% of your revenue with people who don't have land, who can play in your land, and you back 80% of that. So in that sense, basically, you have controls over what percentage of revenue you share. And those users who come in on your land, they can also decide whether they want to play there or want to play elsewhere because someone else offering different commissions. So that's something that will be handled, and you will have controls over the how much you want to like share, right? As for the concept, like I guess the fact that it will be not additional colony,
May I
but it
address
will. Yes. Say yeah, sure.
So what happens if I choose to not? I do nothing. I just leave the lands there, and I'm okay with collecting my CLNY. So what does that mean? That we now lose out on that 20%? because I don't want to be actively marketing against the rest of Mars colony in terms of who's offering a better rate or percentage off in order to play.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the need for them to, or for there to be a thought of that being a percentage of the CLNY? I mean, it's
Yeah.
extremely easy to create a value token in the game, like the whole DFK gold thing, in which there's a completely separate economic that
Mm-hmm.
then could be tied back to CLNY for exchange or other purposes. But
Yeah.
but right now, I mean, for example, right, I bought over 50 land for my 78-year-old dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I'm just describing not a personal situation, even though I'm using it as an example. I'm
Yep.
describing a situation of which many people in Mars Colony have. So I bought the lands for him, and on with investment money, understanding that for the next X amount of time until the CLNY production for that land ceases to happen, that he would have that income, obviously fluctuating with what CLNY converts to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to have to tell him to start a marketing campaign and try to invite avatars on, etc. That should be an additional layer of enhanced benefits should he want to do that.
Yeah, got your point actually, and it makes sense. And of course, like for example, if you just bought land, you don't want to go and just like go crazy and market it. And interesting proposal also about the value token, which you mentioned, right? We also thought about that too, like what if there's gonna be another token that gives value to those users who play and earn. But in that case, like think about it, right? That could be the case where that token become more popular than Colony, like or Clooney, how you guys call it now, and basically the colony that you earn becomes less in demand, right? So that's kind of like one of the there are a couple of things that are against that initiative. Although we thought about that too actually earlier. As for giving extra, there's one of the problems around giving extra colony. Let's say there's another option that you earlier mentioned is why not just like generate extra colony for users who play, right? You mentioned earlier this, yeah, correct?
No, I'm not saying extra colony at all. I understand that that would have a direct impact on the colony's inflation, deflation, emission rate,
Correct.
etc.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that is definitely not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that we have something that's completely separate.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every other GameFi platform that is successful has this concept. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to mention Pravada again because everybody would go nuts here, but they do. GFK has it, right?
Mm-hmm.
In which you have a completely different thing. And I do not think that if the secondary token becomes more popular, of which it might actually very well be, because the
Mm-hmm.
majority of influx of players would be using that token,
Mm-hmm.
it should not affect CLNY because it has a completely different tokenomics.
Mm-hmm.
CLNY is for the governance, for the lands, including extra future utility like maybe DEX control together
Mm-hmm.
with spaceship voyages, etc. So it will have a completely separate, almost regal or royal level of control,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the gaming token is literally used for the gaming.
Mm-hmm. Got it. That actually a good point, and it is good we actually having this conversation today because this is when we can listen to you all, and this is where we can actually still like think together what is the best for the colony, for the Mars colony. So,
Do we have a tokenomics problem? Are we in tokenomics? Do we have a tokenomics issue completely? Like, have you guys identified some area in which we are going to be in trouble with CLNY?
well, from my end, I can just share before Father just gonna give
Hmm.
idea on the tokenomics. But what I see personally is we have a problem with growing, right, colony. We have the fact that we have just a few thousand people that own land, right? And that creates a problem that like scaling problem, right? Land becomes very, I would say, pricey, right, and not affordable for everyone else, and to earn and play. So that's why one of the ideas that we have, and like not ideas, but directions, is to enable non-land owners play, right? And the way to motivate them, to engage them, like we cannot just do like DFK like idea, just going giving them XP or giving them NFTs, but the idea was like to reward them with something monetary that has value too. So, and the colony here that works as a really good example, right? Which we can also reward players that we earlier mentioned. But again, this is from my side, from the user growth side. I think, Father, do you have any idea on the tokenomics side you want to mention? Do you have any?
Eugene, before we go to tokenomics, there's a million ways to solve what we just said, right? In any other platform, the people who own land own land. It's never, ever considered that somehow this land is going to be made available to people else than the people that bought the land. I mean, if you're telling me to give up my land right now that I paid for to somebody else, I mean, if you go to any other world any other metaverse world, to give up the land, if you go to NFT worlds and you say, you bought the land, now give it up to somebody else. Now, if you say something like this, if you say that on the lands, buildings can be built, and the people that are coming in may be able to rent the land and build a building and create a source of income for themselves, then I could agree, or it's a thought that I could agree on. But if you say that the utility player that's coming in now should be able to somehow own the land, no, if he wants to own the land, he needs to gather his funds, gather his resources, go to the secondary market, and then buy the land there.
Yeah. Just let me recap here. I didn't mean that. Pardon. I didn't mean to say that players need to be able to, like, just anyone need to be able to buy land. I meant we need to. There should be proper level of motivation for the people who don't have land to join in colony, right? To join Mars colony. And the idea was here that if you provide proper monetary rewards to people who don't have land, let's say those like we enabling avatars right now, then they will be excited, they will be engaged, and they're going to be still keep playing, despite the fact that they don't have any passive income, right? So here, the idea was, that's what I was referring to. I don't mean that we need to go and just allow anyone to buy land. Totally not that. I'm talking about bringing new players, and I think you guys are going to be more excited if you're going to have more players coming and building on your land, or like
definitely. I mean, there's no doubt about the players coming in a huge influx that will excite us, right? It's the mechanics of the land sharing and the earning. The earning, there's plenty of earning to be done. In another game, you can go and rent a resource, and you can make money off that resource, and you keep that money. But the owner of that resource is not ever being asked to give up that resource, or a portion of his earning of that resource goes to the player. The player's economic is completely separate. The only thing that he needs to do is rent the resource. So, for example, if we're dealing with tanks, you can come rent my tank, play the game, and keep the winnings. But I keep the rent from the tank. And you don't ask me to sell the tank, do you? If you want, you can gather the money that you got from playing, go to the secondary market, and buy it at market rates.
Totally. Yeah, and that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're aiming for. And I think we all have the same direction. It's just the way the way we address this is a little bit different from the one you're proposing. But I do like your idea a lot. So how about we just continue this conversation and just bring more people from community right now, just to hear up more ideas here. What do you think?
Real quick, I think Father wants to address the question as well.
Sure.
Hey guys, I just want to make a quick comment, simply because we're just going around the same things. I got the concern, and it makes sense that it wasn't announced in the beginning. So I agree with the comments, and the solutions here I see is that okay, if that's a critical moment when all landlords has own opinion, we will just go with the voting, and as a development team, we will offer solution either we split. In my mind right now there is several solutions that can be implemented, which already mentioned. Either splitting the revenue of colony share generating, either creating second token, either like minting new colonies and increasing inflation. So I think all these three questions should be like bring on the like public voting, and I personally want to allow only landlords to vote on this because it's like directly related to their like interest. And then whatever landlord decide, this kind of economic will be implemented. So the initial idea to let this project grow by the active landlords and Crypto T by bringing these concerns, you kind of like I assume it's not only your right concern. It's like many people like asking about this, and then you're just saying it publicly. If that's the point, let's just go with like voting, and then done, and we just move on. That was my comment. So in general, like any kind of question which we are doubting, I don't know, team community, and when we're not on the same side, we just should always go by voting. That's idea of Mars colony and like fair, I don't know, democracy and decentralization. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Father. So then sort of latching onto that idea, that's basically confirmation of what I've been trying to communicate recently, which is that we're here to find alternatives. We're here to discuss the proposal. We're here to figure out sort of what are we going to vote on, which direction are we going to take things. And so I just want to reiterate to everybody and add to what Father's saying, that the whole point of having this call is so that everyone can be sort of involved in the discussion making around this. There's not really a way to like it's been suggested shortly after the announcement, for example, people are like, you should have talked to us first before making the announcement. Well, I mean, frankly, that was talking to you guys, and the whole point here is to get everybody involved. If there's a select group of people that we announce it to first, everybody wants to be in that group, and so now we have to play favorites. So just to kind of put like the whole timing of the announcement conversation to bed, just wanted to remind everybody that that's kind of what we're doing here. I will offer a suggestion about a secondary token. Keep in mind when we're talking about resources, so as we're exploring solutions, right? A couple of really good ideas have been thrown out before, like a secondary token that isn't colony, or adding resources or items for avatars. These are all ideas that are at the very least should eventually be implemented into Mars, regardless of what direction we decide to take as a community with the missions rewards. However, keep in mind that like resources will take time to make useful in game. And so if we do decide on, for example, no monetary rewards and keeping them resources that users can sell in game, for example, was one suggestion, people will just immediately sell all those resources for colony until those things are useful a couple of months down the line, because we have to build a game that actually needs resources, right? So there are stages to the process that we'll have to go through, and we need to be cognizant of all of them. And then with a secondary token, it's a similar thing. We're going to have to also discuss how do we make that secondary token useful in game, and how long will that take? Because in the meantime, what's going to happen if you just introduce a secondary token, for example, like DFK, let's call it gold for shits and giggles. If there's no way to use that gold in game initially, people are just going to sell that gold immediately for colony. So we also have to think, in addition to sort of what are we going to reward users with, let's also discuss sort of the framework of what we need to build in game to make that desirable, and then sort of what a timeline could look for getting that done, because it could be a couple of months on the development timeline. So we'll just have to keep those conversations open. T, you're welcome to stay up here, and if you have other questions or suggestions, ask them as well. But I want to give Jam a chance to speak, since he's been waiting for quite a while.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, so I just wanted to chime in. I've been watching what's been going on the forums in the past couple of days, and what I'm seeing as a bit of a common theme is that concern about colony keeps circling back to not having enough use cases. The avatars being the part that draws in new players, while I do agree with that, I do think that the issue does come down to, at the end of the day, Colony doesn't have enough utility at this point in time. I think we need to emphasize what the future use cases will be for Colony. And in some of the discussions that we've had, I think avatars initially being just profile photos or profile pictures is fine. Not changing the emission schedule for the plot owners is fine. But what we can do is basically outline for missions that the avatars can go on missions, earn experience points. And the experience point can be, this is just an example, but the experience point can be basically used to speed up, like as they level up, that can be how they speed up the level or the ability to craft items, and items like buffs for plots, so to protect against worm attacks or attacks from rival guilds or something like that, that the plot owners with their passively generated colony would want to buy from the avatars. And essentially the colony can be used to purchase multipliers for the avatars to generate experience points faster. So essentially creating a loop where the avatars are needed by the plot owners to craft items, and the plot owners would pay the avatars, and the avatars selling their crafted items to the plot owners. Basically, it gives this use of both the colony, the avatars need the plot owners need the avatars, and that's one way that instead of basically just avatars getting colony and dumping, that they would actually put it back into the system. So that was just one idea that I had, or from discussing it with other people on the forum, that would give another use to colony. And I just thought that that's one way to avoid the dumping, but also not take away from the passive land emissions, and gives the ecosystem a way to actually thrive and bring in new players, as opposed to taking away seemingly taking away from the land and plot owners, because plot owners are the ones who took the risks in the beginning, and the buyers of the avatars are not taking as big of a risk as the plot owners did by getting into the game earlier. So that was just an idea that I had.
I would like to comment on that. My side. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We actually worked on that, and some sort of the idea around utilizing further the XP points by upgrading avatars, by giving buffs or debuffs based on your profession, and then essentially giving value to the users. Interesting note that you mentioned about actually giving value to the plot owners, and then even like providing this like need for the plot owners to actually acquire some of those avatars on the secondary market to provide value to them. That's actually something interesting we haven't considered, but definitely we're gonna discuss this. But yeah, we do have a lot of like thoughts on that, and I think thanks also for the feedback here again about what you think about how you think about the fact that the plot owners and the guys who just have avatars, how they're different. That totally makes sense. So it's totally in line with what you're thinking about.
Yeah, basically, I think it's been difficult watching a lot of people on the forum. I do think that the announcement it made it seem that the change in the proposal of how a colony was going to be distributed or basically split between avatar and plot owners, it seemed like it was already decided, and because of that, I think a lot of people did lose confidence. And I think if it was stated in a way or put to a poll instead of being an official announcement, I think that would have been something that would have been, more palatable, I think. And basically, over the past couple of days, there's been a lot of, emotions running high. And I think if we could have had the announcement done in a different way, or maybe put to a poll and then said, hey guys, we want to take your ideas. This is one thing that we're proposing. What do you guys think? As opposed to this is how it's going to go. I think that the whole community would have reacted in a different way as well. So just something to keep in mind going forward when there are ideas like this that essentially change the entire dynamic of what the project is or how the project is going to be working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thanks a lot. I think we're gonna definitely run the poll as we all think it totally makes sense. Another thing, what would be great to bring back is regular AMAs, where we can actually talk to you all and hear our feedback. That's something I think we should have again. And yeah, that's definitely a good option, I would say.
All right, thanks, Jam. So next in line, I believe, is Dollar Signs. Do you want to take a shot?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Just a huge fan of the project, long-term holder. I just got in, forgive me. So I might ask you something redundant, and I don't mean to. So the first thing is more of a statement. I wanted to say that I appreciate that you guys are trying to find ways to decrease vesting. I think that's been one of the biggest challenges with projects that pay passively. Obviously, if you're receiving tokens, and I think someone mentioned earlier that if there's not enough utility for the token, it's bound to be sold. And I know that DeFi Kingdoms kind of struggles sometimes with some of their farms. You see a lot of people locking Jewel, and then you see on Farmers Only Fi they're selling their locked Jewel, out to other people in order to liquidate faster. And I know that could be a challenge, for sure. Where I was a little confused, and I was hoping you could elaborate. How much should we expect the emissions to decrease on the land plots, and also with the avatars being minted, and I believe, and I've read somewhere on this group, so I'm not sure, I might have missed it. Minting is happening next week, I believe. Will we be able to start playing missions and gain more utility for the token in the process? Also, will the decks be launching around that time? And I love the project. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I'm really enjoying everything. And good luck to all you guys. I believe some of you are from Ukraine, and I know this must be a challenging time. So thank you guys for somehow making this all work. That's it.
Thanks a lot for that. That's really great to hear. Good questions on the release timelines, does anybody on the team want to speak to sort of where we're at with the decks, avatars, things like that, and also missions?
I can update on this. So let's first talk about avatars. So initial avatars was like we were expecting that we're gonna deploy it by the end of this week, but we decided to go like just have some free room a little bit to test it out to make sure everything works. So we aiming to finalize by the end of the week. Like most likely will be next week. So we just want to make sure that testing gonna be done properly and everything works well. So that's as for avatars. As for decks, we are fixing some major things. It's been on a test bed for a while, but we just want to make sure everything works. So I can't comment when exactly we're gonna launch decks, but hopefully once we address the core issues, we're gonna be able to let you know exactly the date. On the side of the missions, that's where we actually bring in discussions. So that's gonna be coming after avatars. So expectation here that we're gonna be first launching the like more like a mini game kind of mission. So that's something that we're hoping to be launched within like 2 to 3 weeks. But we need to discuss again with the team after the avatars launch. So that's something we're gonna be updating you with the best timelines once we deploy avatars. But hopefully we're gonna keep keep like up to date updates. That's on the side of development. And on the side of the missions, I mean, Juice, you wanna sum up on this because we just discussed earlier on this. And thank you for the good words, by the way. Yeah, we do have members from Ukraine, so really appreciate that.
Yeah, so on the mission side of things and the sort of lore side of things, some of the decisions around how missions are going to operate in the first like 1 to 3 stages is going to depend on the decisions we make around this discussion as far as like the revenue sharing or the incentive model for missions, because we'll have to work that into obviously game mechanics and lore. So that's where the deadline on missions becomes less clear because it's going to depend on how we navigate this conversation. That said, currently there are basically the first iteration of missions is going to be like a limited set of simple sort of mini games, like Eugene was saying, that are hinting to future plot developments. Will eventually sort of form a storyline around Martians colonizing Mars and a couple of things going wrong. So there's a lot that we have planned on that side, but the specifics are going to have to be nailed down once we figure out the revenue / incentive model. Let's see who was next. I believe Undervalued was next on the list. I apologize if I'm switching up the order a little bit, but Undervalued, did you want to comment?
But just gonna note on a little bit on the side of the timelines here. So again, why important this decision is right now on the poll side is because if we decide to having like a rev share model, then we have to launch guilds before we launch the missions, right? But if you don't need to do that, we can launch guilds later. So that's why we have to. The timelines will really depend upon the voting that we're gonna do.
And let me actually just take a second, real quick, to clarify about the announcement that was made the other day. One, definitely lesson learned, but two, I think like so that we can kind of all be clear on what the team was actually proposing. What we proposed was not like a slap in the face to anyone. It kind of seemed that it got like misinterpreted that way or miscommunicated that way. But the changes to emissions that we're proposing are not going to be drastic. And the only reason I'm still talking about them is because obviously we still need to vote on them. So basically, the emissions like sort of redistribution would only be a small percentage of passive earning, and that so that wasn't like we're going to take a huge chunk of what you guys are earning and give it to new players. It was more just like if you have a certain amount of lands, you'll be fine because you can play your own lands, and if you have too many, you can scale with a revenue model that like takes 5% or something like that, and allows you to still kind of have a play to earn without having to spend your whole day because you have too many land. So wasn't ever intended to seem like something we wanted to take away from landowners or sort of switch things up on you guys. It was just a way to like sort of create small incentives for players who want to have a small earn, whereas landowners are here obviously to as early supporters to earn more. And so it's kind of that same framework, like paradigm we talked about before, about how there are different kinds of players looking for different sort of exposure, and not everybody's going to be here to earn a lot. Some players are going to want to just play to play. Some players are looking for entertainment. Some players are looking for like a way to grind and feel accomplished. And landowners are kind of specifically the ones that are here for investing. And so we obviously were never going to take that away. So just to kind of clarify, there was a lot of things going around like in the community the last few days where people were starting to feel like we should call out whales for having too much land or something like that, or even using the term whales feels kind of grimy, right? Because there's no point in separating people based on how much they own. What we were thinking about is how to separate users based on their intent in playing the game and to honor everybody's purposes in joining Mars Colony, right? So trying to find a compromise solution that will benefit everybody. So with that said, I'd like to just make sure that everybody knows not to, whether you support the idea or have different ideas or want to vote against it, all of those things are okay. And I don't want anybody like, getting defensive or upset at, one player or another just because they hold different opinions or different amounts of land. So, all right. Sorry about that. Eugene, did you have anything else to say, or were we passing to a community member?
I mean, I'd just like to address final question on the emission side. So yeah, so it will totally depends upon your voting, guys. Yeah, so just let's keep it open.
Sweet, thanks. So Undervalued, this is your turn to speak if you'd like to. In the meantime, I'm going to let up Try as well. So everybody in the request to speak line has been granted permission. So Undervalued, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. I'll give you a few more seconds. If nothing changes, we will go to Try, and you can stay up and keep trying. And when your mic starts working, we can give you the next chance to speak. All right, I guess we'll go to Try. Try.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Couple of things. I've listened and read, and I'm probably going to take a long-winded moment, as Juice likes to do. But I just want to say, when money's involved in things, it tends to skew people's perspectives when things are conveyed. And I just want to remind everybody that what is unique about this team is that they are involving us, the community, at every step of the way. And when I read Juice's post, I had some initial emotional reaction to that. However, I took a moment and I sat back and I said, what is it that Juice is trying to convey? And I went back and I had to read it and reread it and read it. And I didn't want to post anything out there that would be perceived as FUD or a misconstrued intent behind what was provided. And I got the sense that, hey, this is a discussion. When I went back and I read it, it was truly meant to be a discussion of everything that is kind of been put forth by the dev team to the community from day one. And I just want to reiterate to everybody that nothing's changed. There's nothing that's happening that is going to happen that is going to shift from what was originally posted. And the reaction, I think, I just want to say, Before we sit down and type something out, let's take a moment and ask ourselves, is what I'm about to say or respond with constructive or destructive? If it's destructive, then go back and rethink or go back to the source of the information. Don't listen to rumors. Go to the source, because the source is most important of anything that we're given. And I can't imagine that any ill will or intent was intended with what was presented. As a landowner myself, and I've said this before, I've got a significant investment, not as much as others, but certainly a lot in the grand scheme of things. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there and say, we are a community. This was just a proposal. Let's talk about it. Let's come to an agreement. And to the dev team, I wanna congratulate you for your openness and your willingness to incorporate the community. I know that was always in the plan, and it's been demonstrated time and time again. And I want to thank you all for your efforts in trying to guide the herd, so to speak. And that's kind of what I wanted to say at this point. I'm sure I'm going to come up with some questions, maybe a little bit later, but I just want to put that out there for right now.
Well, thanks, Tri. That's really encouraging, and I appreciate that. I do want to just say, though, I did learn a little bit from that announcement. And going forward, I think it'll be helpful to maybe limit sort of the length of those announcements and break things down into bullet points, make them a little more clear, just easy to understand, and so that it doesn't take multiple rereads. But I really do appreciate the support. So guys, the rest of the core team it's quite late for them, and they also still have things they got to get to. So we're going to take a few more questions, and then some of them might have to leave. I'll stick around, though. So after the hour is up and a lot of the core team leaves, I can stick around if we still want to talk. And we can kind of flesh out any suggestions you guys might want to have proposed on the forum. We can figure out how we're going to do voting, or like discuss. Obviously, the decisions will have to be a little bit of a back and forth over the next couple of days, but we can keep going. But just keep in mind that around the hour mark, the core team might have to hop off.
We got something to share, don't we?
Marks, you are so right. Do you want to take the moment to share with these good people?
Oh, no. You do.
So we just have a stand up after like in 10 minutes. That's why he's a bit worried. You're gonna be
Shit, yeah, right.
out of time.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I mean. Like the core team has sync meetings and stuff we have to get to from now, but I can hang around and we can keep discussing this. But shortly after this AMA is over, you guys will also get a little bit of an announcement. So keep your eyes posted for that. Just it'll start in the announcements channel on in the Discord for everybody who was here, just as a little bit of a thank you. So I guess we've got time for maybe.
I did have one more follow up. Well, I actually had a question. I think I posted it in the chat. In terms of the compensation to the avatars, Gen 0, 1, whatever we're calling them these days, was there any consideration that maybe a small faucet-like colony to those first generational come from the treasury? I don't know. I just maybe wanted to put that out there as maybe that faucet-like, not anything crazy.
Eugene, do you want to speak to the faucet part?
I just like to elaborate if I understood you correctly. You mean like just like buy view avatars for testing purposes for everybody else, or just can you elaborate on this? Sorry, I didn't get it. Yeah, question.
So to reward those avatars, those first generation avatars that get released, because they're early, just like landowners, and they're kind of in their own little ecosystem that is waiting for something to be developed for good use cases. A faucet like passive income, maybe something like 0.001 or 0.01 colony per day that gets pulled from the treasury instead of the land owners as a means to kind of compensate that, of which with the very first release of any sort of real functionality, that the purchase of those types of items can then go back into the treasury to fill it back up for what's being drained from the treasury but put into circulation. That was the kind of the thought process.
So like avatars would get daily like a very small amount of colony as a
Yeah, I would love to answer this. Yeah, definitely. Ideas sounds great, but initial purpose of avatars was actually to be fully engaged in missions. So, the goal here is that you do the missions, and this is where you earn. And on the side of as you also pointed out, that do not take part of the profits of the passive incomers. That's going to be voting on that. So that's not something we've taken. Yeah. So we'll definitely gonna figure out rewards for avatar owners, and if let's say there's gonna be decision to not do any rev sharing, then we're gonna look into other ways to reward those people who have avatars. But those rewards, I personally and the team that working with together, we kind of think still that it should be coming from the missions that you're taking. So that's something that we have in mind more. But of course, we're willing to consider. So again, if that's also an interesting option.
May I address some points?
Sure. Sam. You had some points?
I did. Sorry, I was just waiting for just to give me the clearance yet. Thank you, Eugene. Guys, there's a few white elephants in the room that I need to bring up, right? Number one is I do not consider Mars Colony to be in the crypto space. Yes, we are, but the crypto space is fraught with fraudulent stuff and rug pulls and everything else. So I consider Mars to be literally quite a different planet than the rest of the crypto space. It's a place where it is trusted. We know that our dev team will do good behind us. We trust in a lot of the decisions being made, etc. Right? But the last update has eroded trust a lot. And I can tell you that from a community perspective and a large holder perspective, a lot of that trust was eroded with this last update. And the reason that it was is because everything that we've had recommended in suggestions, which by no means should be any contract to follow, looks like it was completely overheard, or not overheard, but ignored almost. I don't want to say it is ignored, but the perception is that it were, because we have such excellent suggestions coming out for the tokenomics. All of this avatar, second tokens, emissions were discussed a lot amongst the community with excellent suggestions coming up. And yet, without any discussion, without any tabling, without any polling at all, this update came about, which is, and let me be clear, the perspective from which the update came about was not that it is an open discussion, and that we will have a look at things.
Hey
And
T, I'm gonna jump
case,
in real quick. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off. I do want to continue this discussion, but just in the effort because the devs are gonna have to do a sync right now.
Absolutely. Go for it.
So I yeah, really sorry to cut you off. I do want to just kind of say, like, address the concerns, a couple of concerns. The first one with all the suggestions in the past. So I do monitor the suggestions channel, and we actually have discussed many of the ideas that have come up that were viable. I don't know if you've like heard as Father and Eugene were mentioning sort of the routes we were considering for incentivizing avatars. For example, like secondary tokens. We've considered secondary tokens, of course, but there's more that goes into it that sort of we were convinced, and I think to a degree still are, that there are, well, better is an interesting word to use here, because I want to be very clear. This is a discussion, and we are not set in stone in any sort of decision, but we still have an opinion, and we're still, for the most part, of the opinion that, for example, a secondary token, there's a lot of context that needs to go into that to make that not absolutely flop. Because if you think about it, introducing a secondary token without any sort of framework for that to be useful in game for the next few months would essentially mean, because of the dev lift that requires, would essentially mean that the only difference is it's still taking colony from where landowners are generating it and giving it to avatars. It's just one extra step, because you give them a second token, they're going to immediately dump it for colony. Now, that could be a valuable thing. There's reason to explore, like, fees and the decks for that, and like maybe there's a burn mechanism you can implement, and that could do things to the price of colony. It might be a good option to pursue, but I just want to reassure you that we are monitoring those suggestions. They're not going ignored. The announcement was more just in light of everything being discussed. This is kind of what we feel is the best option. As far as saying it didn't seem like it was up for discussion, I'll say I do agree that the announcement could have been made better, but honestly, I'm going to start ignoring any comments on the fact that people are like, oh, it didn't seem like it was up for discussion, because in like 8 different points on the first publication, in brackets around every critical idea, I said everything is up for discussion, no decisions have been made yet. The edit at the top in big bold words that says, edited to clarify this is up for discussion, I added that because people kept missing, like not reading the post, and even though at multiple points it says this is just a discussion, people were kind of missing that, so I made that easier. It wasn't a decision we changed, like, oh, this is our choice, people don't like it, we're going to start talking about it. It was always a discussion from the beginning. So I apologize for, like, it could have, there was certainly room to improve, but I feel it's disingenuous to represent that as any sort of like betrayal, because people are saying, oh, there should have been polls and discussions about this. Well, I mean, that's what we're doing, guys. This is the whole point here. And so you can't, it's like certain people don't want a solution. They just want somewhere to be upset, and that's okay. But I recommend therapy. So devs, if you guys have to step out, feel free. I'll hang around in case we want to continue these discussions, because I know there's a lot to talk about. Basically, I'll summarize, like, the next steps are going to be to continue gathering, people's ideas and thoughts. I know there's a lot in suggestions that I have written down, but if you guys, like, after talking to the core team, have more to say or more questions or anything, or more ideas, we can continue fleshing them out here. And then what we'll do is we'll create a couple of forum posts to kind of list them all out, like the most common, consistent community ideas on how this will work. And then we can kind of do a landowner vote in the near future between those ideas and see which one works best for everybody. And then the voting mechanisms we'll describe, in greater detail shortly, once we've got some ideas and have like a timeline for when the vote will happen. But yeah, with that, I'm going to let Undervalued come up and try again, because he's requested to speak once again. But core team devs, if you guys have somewhere to be, feel free to step out at any point.
I do have a question though, just chiming in, but T, just a very important point you mentioned, if I understood you correctly, that, if not talking about the specific decision, but earlier that you said you have a lot of recommendations that, if there's some recommendations you guys have and you really want to discuss with devs, specifically on the game side, I think we can arrange some kind of even, some call where you guys us, like me, maybe someone else from my team, and just like anyone who else wants to really take part in decision making or ideas on the product on the GameFi, and just schedule like a discussion, like once per month, and I would be happy to discuss this in details, just to make sure that some critical suggestions being considered. So let me know. We can do that.
Eugene, that's exactly what we've been asking for a while. And the problem is that the suggestions are a monologue. Like, for example, if we give a suggestion, we number one have no idea whether it's been read. Secondly, if that suggestion ends up with future questions, then the person that gave the suggestion is not there to answer or to malleate it, to change it in any way, right? And that is a problem because, I mean, like, for example, if I say secondary tokens, immediately there could be a problem, but you're not having a dialogue with the person who suggested it. Right. So yes, we do need a call. We need a forum. We need something in which we can sit down with you and say, let's discuss this. And then by the back and forth, we could come up with a mechanism that could be absolutely bulletproof and the best in the industry.
Let's try it out then. Like, I mean, I'm down. So we can arrange again. We can arrange the call. Just bring the agenda. Bring invite folks who really want to take part in that and try to have a dialogue. And then we can just see how we're moving from there. So Juice, what do you think?
Let's do a trial one of these things, right? So if we do a trial and it works out very successful, then we know that it's a forum that we could repeat. But I mean, a monologue in which we drop something to the suggestions and again, no idea whether it's been read or not, is kind of demotivating when it comes to even proposing another suggestion, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of. Let me just address this because we've talked about this before. So here's the thing about Mars Colony. Everything takes a little bit of time to build and to figure out, including community forum models. And so, sort of, the suggestions channel is a like interim solution, a short-term solution for what needs to be a much bigger structure for the DAO. Which I don't know if you guys remember, but we've talked before about mock DAO. I said I would be announcing something in April about a structure for like a sort of practice DAO for the community to get together and be able to have like structured channels for thoughtful discussion where we have, community discussions, and then, the ideas that are widely supported there become sort of moderated, like moderator-led community discussions, and then those ideas that are fleshed out, the core team joins and we can really dive into like ideas that have put some work into, because even with only like 2,000 people in the community, we can't, it's not even enough to do regular AMAs. We need even more of like a refining structure. And so this has been in the works for a while. I've got documentation already started on it. It's just taking a little bit of time to get the mock DAO structure fleshed out, and is expected in April, early April, to be able to like start testing these things. So yeah, great idea, Crypto T. Just want to reassure you that like that's already in the plans, and will be happening soon.
Fantastic, and I think we're addressing the same thing. But Eugene's offering of a dialogue is also very, very, very much needed, because a lot of these things I mean, I can't tell you something sophisticated and expect it to be a one-way monologue. Because if you have questions, I'm not there to answer, vice versa, right? So, if it's something that's open as a dialogue, as in there's a voice call in which we can discuss the top 5 ideas that bubble to the top from the community, then that would be brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree with you there. So great. Awesome. Undervalued, I promised you a shot, so I really want to give you one. Do you want to try to see if your voice is working this time? Oh, it's not. Oh, there's a settings in your user settings where you check your input, but it's all right. We'll have more of these AMAs in the future, guys. Thanks so much for joining. I'm going to stick around in this channel so that we can keep discussing if you guys want to. I'll still have to leave in probably 30 minutes, but we have a little more time. And then let's do another one of these like shortly after, or probably shortly after Avatar. Ooh, there we go. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I don't know if this is staying on. I had to change it to push to talk.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You're on.
No, I was just going to say specifically, I trust everything you guys are doing with the economy, and to be honest, the bigger picture in politics, I kind of defer to the vision that you guys have from as a team. One thing that is just a little bit concerning that we seem to be getting a ton of very strong voices from the community referring to this in the necessity of it is the hesitation to kind of look at the second token as because of its lack of value early on. The token for the game and a thriving play to earn economy is not necessary for the early game when there's nothing to do. What it is it's necessary for the long term growth. And I know this project's all about the long term, and we can't be having like 10 decimal place micro denominations of colony 10 years down the road when it's fully minted out and completely, all but burned, and the massive play to earn economy, and you have teeny little like 0.00001 right costs on things of colony for everything within the play to earn economy. So like just from a gaming perspective, like I'm building a game, like I'm not, I wouldn't call myself a full game dev, but the idea is that right when you denominations for a very large potential growth of an economy need to be scaled appropriately, and like a command currency for that where the devs have the ability to scale supply based off of future development progress instead of market sentiment and investor sentiment is extremely important for a healthy growth in the long run, not for the early on when you don't have any use cases, just like any other game or Mars Colony when it first started. It's extremely important for the future to have a specific token that's associated with the value of the play to earn rewards that is separate from land ownership and governance and everything else, but is perfectly interchangeable in an open market format within Mars Colony, which is what we're trying to have anyway, is have that be an open exchange. So just make it all exchangeable between itself, but have accurate representations of value that you can scale appropriately for the long run, even if right now when there's no use cases, it doesn't have a lot of value. That's just investing in something early. That's okay. We're all okay with Mars Gold having no value when there's no missions. That's not a problem.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I want to confirm a secondary token is 100% in the plans. It's just a matter of when and how. So I completely agree with you. I think there's basically going to have to be discussion on whether or not people want it now or whether or not they want it once it's more like we have a marketplace for it in the game. And either one of those is totally fine. So we should definitely discuss. I think the core team is of the opinion that currently of the opinion, I should say, that it's still important to tie some degree of colony as incentive to avatars to maintain sort of utility across the game for colony. But we will also have to discuss that like as a community in more detail and really flesh out sort of where we want to see it going and how we want to see it used. So yeah, great points.
Real quick,
looks like you have more to say.
Yeah, the real quick, that's totally 100%. Like, I absolutely agree that the tie-in of the colony to each other, like exchange and having it, reinforce each other, not be separate is important. But you can still do that with like a separate representation of value, like individual tokens, and have them just exchangeable within the economy. I mean, DFK Gold was worthless for a long time, and they didn't even have it interchangeable with Jewel for months when they had it out, and you could sell it into it. So, like, the idea of the progress isn't too much of a worry. I also getting the rewards from the Mars Colony ecosystem for play to earn. Like, I understand from an economic perspective, whether that's done in the form of colony or from another token, that the idea of the total value is still coming from colony is still going to affect colony total, but with the cannibalization of rewards from one specific segment of the current 49-30-21 split of the Treasury LP and lands is currently focused on taking it from landowners. And I understand that there's the option for landowners to essentially mint out the amount of colony to maintain the rewards. But if all landowners did that, then that wouldn't even increase engagement. So just to be able to maintain rewards and current earnings, it would be something that we wouldn't even grow at all if everybody maintained where they are. So the idea of it coming specifically from land ownership, as I think the number one issue in the whole community here, is that like it's not coming from Treasury, it's not coming from LP, it's literally being taken from land ownership. And if everybody it does want to maintain, we grow not at all. All we did was just invest more money to maintain our returns. So the understanding that having a separate token and a separate way of engaging other than what currently already exists and having its own unique representation of value is really important for everybody. Also because the fact that the idea is not being talked about of taking this from the Treasury or from the LP at 100% is specifically focused on the land segment and the cannibalization of those emissions, and maintaining everybody's returns equals no growth of engagement.
I think that's a really good way to summarize like the sort of central opposition to the proposal. I think so. Thanks for that. I think if we can we should create like threads on the forum for a few central sort of varying ideas that can each have their comment threads. I will in the suggestions channel later today or tomorrow, I will gather what I think to be the main sort of threads for like which direction to take this and post them there. And then, gauging those replies, sort of edit them and add to them, throw those up on the forum, and then we can open the discussion there in writing so that people can kind of track each idea individually. So we'll have like a thread, we'll have a forum post for like the core team's proposal. We'll have a thread for like each coherent idea individually, so they can each be discussed. And then after a few days of discussion, everybody has a chance to evaluate all the ideas. We can start to talk about voting mechanics, and then bring those like whichever ideas still stand to a vote. So do be thinking about specifically. This isn't just to you, Undervalue. This to everybody. Think about sort of which idea you like best as far as what you've heard so far, what you think the best solution is. And then we'll like sort of initiate the next step in the process of narrowing down which ideas we want to pursue going forward.
Can you please allow the moderators to remove non-constructive comments from there then? Because it's just going to end up being another shit show of just a lot of nonsense to that. I mean, if there's some contributory comment to, for example, if Undervalue made a thread, anybody contributing positively to it, yes, but the conversation devolves very quickly into just, slugging it out type of thing. So maybe if the moderators can clean up after, so we have like a proper thread of constructive criticism or suggestions. I'm not saying anything in opposition removed, but there's 90% of it is just nonsense.
Yeah, I think okay. So I don't want to put too much work on the mediators' plates, just because like they're not like full-time paid employees or anything. They're just community members that like to be active and are super duper helpful. But so what we can do then is like let's the social banter, project discussion, those channels, we'll keep them just for whoever wants to say whatever that fits in that channel. But for really like constructive discussion about which solutions we're going to do, let's keep the suggestions channel clean. Let's sort of try to continue together, like summarize our main favorite ideas. I'll be in that chat today as well and tomorrow as best I can, and then so we'll like focus on keeping the suggestions channel clean, but the rest of the channels are like it would just be too many to try to wrangle everybody. So that goes for like all the community. Try to keep try to stay on topic in the suggestions channel. We'll have the mediators also helping towards that end, and we can kind of like make some progress here. So all right, everybody, I think unfortunately we're gonna have to call this AMA for now, but we're gonna have more. I think the next probably the next one we can get the whole core team around for will probably be after the launch of avatars, just because there's so much to do. But at least me, if not a couple others, can join before then. Probably next week we can have one more to recap. But even before that, we'll have like discussions on the forum, and we'll start to make some progress on how we're going to vote on these ideas in the very near future. So those are the main focuses. Thank you guys so much for all your ideas and suggestions. I appreciate. I know things were kind of like wild the last few days, but I appreciate how you guys have all pulled through, and I think we're onto something here. So looking forward to seeing how this goes, and thanks so much for joining us today, guys.
Okay, people are leaving. Everybody left. Let me shout out